Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be checking out the new RUNE system coming in Season 8. So I know it's like quite far away, well like a half a season away and stuff, but actually it's going to be pretty cool to go over what the new rework system is going to be like. This is going to replace your runes and masteries. I'm going to go into pretty much all that we know so far today. So very quickly, then we're going to go into what the new rune system actually looks like, what we know so far. We're going to be having 6 runes now into a game. They're going to be free as well, and we'll be getting some kind of like compensation, I guess, for our rune pages and the runes we already have. The whole idea of this, actually, if we're obviously the keystones on the screen right now, but the idea of these really revolves around keystones. So you know in Season 7, they're massively important, whether you take Fervor or Warlords or Thunderlords. It kind of changes how you play it, right? That's actually kind of a pilot for this system, actually, which Riot said earlier when they were talking about this, is they tested this out to see if the impact could be good for the game. And because it was good for the game, they're now kind of taking that to another level. All of the choices you make are going to actually impact, not quite to a keystone level, but some of them will do, and to varying degrees, I guess, but actually change the way you play. So we're going to be able to take 6 of these into game with us. We're going to be taking 1 keystone, 1 major one, 2 minor ones, and then I guess maybe a major and a minor. I'm not entirely sure. They don't tell you where the last 2 are going to go. You go down these paths, basically. So you know how you have like cunning or ferocity and stuff, kind of tells you exactly what you want. So if you go ferocity, you're kind of looking for damage, right? Or the resolve tree is kind of the tanky side of things. You're going to have similar stuff like that in these paths, where you'll be able to select the 2 minor ones, a major rune, and a keystone at the bottom of it. But the last 2 points will be able to be put into other things. So you specialize into one aspect, which might be damage, for example. But then, like how the system is now, you can then spec off with these last 2 points into something else that you might want to do. So roughly, by the way, you have 60 choices at the moment of different things that you can take. So there's actually going to be a lot of different variety, and they are really supposed to impact how you play the game. So actually a good example, right, is Riot's nickname for this, before we start, is called Perk System. So you know how in Call of Duty, right, you have perks that actually kind of make a pretty big difference to how you play the game. They're going to change whether you go really aggressive or if you're a bit more passive, if you want to fight from range, stuff like that. Well, that is kind of what this system is going to be doing. So how I play Lucian with my perks, or my rune system, I guess, is going to be, might be different to how somebody else wants to play Lucian. And those 2 play styles, I might do more upfront damage, they'll do more ramping damage, for example. So it should have a much bigger impact. Anyway, the first type is going to be the keystone. So we actually have a few examples of this. This is the reason I wanted to do this video, is because we actually know the kind of things that we should really be expecting. And the question for this video, by the way, I'd love to know in the comments who you think is going to be using this Berserk and Perksy the most. Like, who do you think is going to be the most overpowered if they take these keystones? Anyway, so as an example of these that really do impact the game massively, like this is kind of Fervor and stuff taken on steroids, right? Your Berserk is going to be 3 seconds after damaging the champion, you do enter this Berserk state. You gain 60% attack speed for 3 seconds, and you can extend that to 10 seconds by attacking an enemy champion. That also lets you go over the attack speed cap, so if a crit champion, for example, already has 3 attack speed items, it doesn't matter, you're still going to be gaining this bonus. Now that is actually pretty ridiculous, right? For an AD carry, that's massively going to increase your damage, but as you can see, this is kind of a ramping thing. Now the counterpart to this most likely is going to be more upfront damage, whereas this is kind of like you don't do as much at the very start of a fight, you sit back a little bit, and then suddenly you ramp up into this Berserk state and you start taking it over, right? So it's not about the start of the fight, it's about the middle to the end of the fight. Now the other choices for this keystone will likely be similar damage wise, but they're going to be more maybe focused at the start of the fight. This Perksy one though is really interesting. It's a lot like Lulu's picks, actually, if you think of it like that. Your abilities and your attacks are going to be sending this Perksy to a target. So she'll shield allies or she'll damage enemies. And it actually is quite a lot. I know obviously these numbers are probably going to change, but like 120 based on your level, and she's got an AP or AD ratio as well. I don't know why I'm saying it's a she, but no, it actually is a she, so there you go. It doesn't look like it, but this could actually be really important for a support, or for even just like a tank, for example. Like these kind of things, using offensively or defensively, could be really interesting. But keystones we already have, right? So I'm not going to go into that too much. Major runes are actually really interesting because this is the next tier down in power, and we don't have something like this at the moment. When you go down your masteries, they're very like impactful, but that's pretty much it, right? You don't really, the ones above it don't have that much impact in the game. Major runes are really going to shift this around because they actually still do. You can see one of the examples, Overheal. Excess healing becomes a decaying shield for up to 10% of your total health. Now, that could be good on loads of different champions, right? If you're an AD carry and you have a Soraka with you, for example, if you don't have a healer as your support, then there's no point taking this. But if you do have a healer, suddenly it's going to change the game and actually be really good. Like Soraka is going to be able to heal you up over, you'll have the 10%. Imagine with a Bloodthirster, that would be really cool if that's your game plan. You also could have this on a tank, for example, right? And then suddenly you have 10% of your maximum health, or your total health, sorry, is an extra decaying shield on there ready for the team fight. So you heal somebody up as you engage. Like this zombie ward though is one of my favorites. This is actually really cool. And one of the reasons I love it so much is I think, as far as I'm aware, this was actually a suggestion from one of you guys, or not necessarily you watching this video, but one of the players actually said, why don't you have this thing where if you kill an enemy ward, you're able to like create a zombie ward, for example, which is going to last there after the ward is killed and give you some vision instead. So Riot actually saw this and thought, yeah, actually that kind of looks pretty cool. So we're actually going to implement that into our new system. But basically, after killing an enemy ward, you have a friendly zombie ward raised in its place. So it's going to be like visible, last for 180 seconds. It doesn't count your ward limit, but by visible, I assume it means like a blue trinket, for example, right? So the enemy can just walk over and clear it without having to use a sweeper or anything like that. So this is going to massively change for a support, for example, how you'd want to play it. Like maybe they want to take the overheal, for example, because then they get tankier and they can engage or dive in. But maybe they want to take the zombie ward to have a bit more focus on vision. I'm guessing probably not for solo queue, but I don't know, that might be a bit better, like depending on how you want to play the game, which is really cool because it changes player to player, right? Anyway, so if we look at minor runes finally, these things are much smaller. So Essence Thief would gain 1 permanent max health when enemy minions die near you. So it sounds really, really cool. And it is pretty cool, honestly. Imagine as a support or anything like that, or if you just farmed all game, if that's your play style, this would be really cool for you. You're only really going to get, what, like 300 CS in a game? Maybe like that would push to 500 because it's enemy, it's like creeps around you, right? So not necessarily just your CS total, but still, the extra 300 to 500 health, that's pretty cool in a game. Or the Overcharger, which gives you cooldown reduction per level, up to 10%, but then after that, it's going to be converted to AP or AD. This one I actually really like because this really requires some forethought into the actual game. If you think about it, this is going to change. It's only useful if you're not going to be buying cooldown reduction already, in my opinion at least, right? You don't really need it if you're already going to get to a 40% on a build. If you're not though, and you're a champion who wants to stack AP, for example, like a Syndra, but doesn't really have a way to get to that 40%, then this is going to allow you to get to 40% with your original build that you already have. So if you plan out your build and think, okay, I'm going to get to 30%. I want an extra 10%. I'm going to take Overcharger. Like, that's actually really cool. And it changes the way you build. It changes the way you play the game and actually helps you as long as you have a brain and you think about it before the game, if that makes sense. So as we said, with this path and slot section, I'm going to link this in the description below so you can actually check it, of course, if you want to. But this is just going through what we said before. Basically, you have the 6 runes per game. You have a path that you're going to go down. You have the Keystone at the bottom, I imagine. You have the major one, and then you have 2 minor ones that you can choose. And the last 2 choices are going to be into different paths that you can obviously kind of adapt your gameplay to. Now, one of the examples, though, one of the things we haven't mentioned is while you're picking these different runes, these minor slots are going to be having a 3 choice. So basically, you can click onto a minor rune and you have a choice of 3 things that all kind of do something similar but in a different way, for example. So again, you're going down, you're still going into this damage route, but you're thinking, okay, I could use this a bit better, or I could use this a bit better, or this one. So this is the Bounty Hunter take, basically, you know, in the Frosty tree at the moment, where you get percentage damage if you kill like a bunch of enemy champions like uniquely, or if you do battle trance where it's ramping up, is that kind of idea. So for the first one example, you get 10 out of combat move speed for Bounty Hunter stack. You get one of these once you kill a unique champion. The next one would be a 5% item active cooldown reduction per Bounty Hunter stack, so like a Blade the Rune King or a Yumu's Ghost Blade, for example. And the final one is 2% spell vamp per Bounty Hunter stack. So as you can see, they all revolve around the same idea, right? This Bounty Hunter stacking kind of mechanic, but they're all giving you something a bit different. So you have to choose which one you think is going to be best for you in the game, which one you want to utilize the most. That's like a best example of what we're actually going to be looking like. And what I was saying with the Keystones at the start is, yeah, Berserk is really good for like mid to late into a fight, but at the start it's not very good. And you're going to have another choice that will be better at the start. That kind of changes how you play, right? Another example is this green version. So the Essence Thief is gaining the maximum health. Don't Panic would mean heals and shields are 5% stronger onto you, increase on just 5% stronger in general, increase 10% on targets below 40% health, and then the panic, you gain 10% move speed towards nearby allies that are crowd controlled or enemies that you see. So you have a clear distinct choice, right? You can have this panic, for example, that is going to charge you towards a fight. Really good for an engager. If you imagine you lock them down as a Sejuani with your long range ultimate and then you charge toward them, right? Panic, for example, but there is a trade-off, right? The panic one means that your heals and shields are going to be stronger, and the essence thief will mean that you get more health. So yes, you move to a fight a bit faster, but you're not going to be as tanky when you get there. There's a clear distinct choice between what's going to happen. So you could be playing Sejuani one game and you could play her as this really fast crowd control beast, right? And then the next game you can play her, okay, I'm going to be a bit slower, but I'm going to be insanely tanky this time around. Like, it depends what kind of game you want to really play in. And so far, Riot have said you can change these in the champion select of your game. So you can kind of adapt to what your team has, what the enemy team has. It's not like the rune system at the moment where you can only change them pre-game. That wouldn't really make sense with an adaptive system. With this system, you're going to be able to change them depending on what you see. So if you see that you're going to need more health because they have loads of burst damage, you can take Essence Thief. If actually they're a pretty tanky team, you don't need to be as tanky, then maybe you can take Don't Panic or Panic instead, right? But that's pretty much the rune system in a nutshell. At the very bottom, it does say that the runes will be free. So hopefully you guys found this interesting and got a really good idea of what the Season 8 rune system is going to look like. Thank you very much for watching the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know which you think are the most overpowered champions with Berserk and Perksy. I really hope Perksy looks like this kind of, what is that? Like a cat with a horn and some purple stuff, like purple hair and stuff, like a mane. That'd be really cool if you actually have this flying around the map. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video.